So we figured while Tyrell was storming his way through the Tri-State Golden Gloves, we'd use this as an opportunity to show how I wrap my amateur athletes' hands according to USA Boxing standards. It's really important to remember when you're wrapping an athlete's hands that the goal isn't that the wrap acts as a pad. The goal is that the wrap acts as compression. It should be loose when the athlete's hand is relaxed, and it should be snug but not tight when the athlete makes a fist. So there are lots of situations that I'm going to talk you through here where you want the athlete to be flexing their hand. I always use the cues big hand and fist to make sure that I get the right tension in the right spots to give my athletes the support that they need. At this point, I've coached and cornered over 400 fights, both amateur and pro, and I've never had one of my athletes break their hands using this wrapping style. You can see here I've pre-made this knuckle pad. I do this in two ways. I do 10 laps with the gauze, either around my hand or around a card that is about the size of my athlete's hand, and then pull it off, slide it off. This gives leverage, just like your patella for your patellar tendon on your knee, so that you get good pressure and tension across the knuckles. This is not intended to be padding, it's meant to be a leverage point. From here, I anchor the back half of this to my athlete's hand. And then I fold it and I pin it down tightly just below their knuckles. You got to get the angle of the wrap right here so that it pulls this back and it doesn't just flatten it out across their knuckles. Once you've secured the knuckle pad, I go down to the wrist. It's very, very important that you get past that little bony protuberance on an athlete's wrist because that's the point of articulation. And then again, as I said in the beginning, you're looking for compression. So I'm making this cross pattern, this X pattern across the back of the athlete's hand. For all of the wrapping techniques so far, the athlete's hand is relaxed. Up the thumb, down and across the back of the hand. I usually do this 3 or 4 times, and again, compression. Depending on the type of wrap that you're using, I try to wrap each section of the hand enough times over that I can't see the skin through the holes in the gauze. After this, we're going between the fingers. And again, this gives you 4 different little loops and X's of compression on the back of the hand. You can see as I pull this through the fingers, I twist the wrap so that it doesn't bunch up. And you can see me cueing big hand and fist with my athlete to make sure that we get the appropriate tension as we do this. Specifically when going around the pointer finger and the thumb, these are the 2 big choke points where you can definitely go too tight and it'll hurt the athlete's hand or stop them from making a comfortable fist. Now that I've hit the important parts and the main parts of the wrap, I do a little bit more on the wrist just to get this roll small enough that I can create my bar coming up. You can see me pinching all the fabric on the palm together, bringing the now smaller roll up, giving it a twist so that it doesn't bunch, and then I feed it through the fabric on the palm, back up, and in between the pointer and middle finger to to create a nice bar. It's almost like I'm making an MMA glove on my athlete's hand. I do a final loop that's pulled a little more tightly than everything else, just to make sure that our leverage point, that pad on the knuckles, stands high and tall so that we can anchor against that with our tape. And then I use the rest of the gauze to finish on the wrist and give support where needed. Then we're ready to move on to our tape. I've used lots of different tapes over the years, and I really prefer the war tape. It is the best. It adheres very tightly. I can wrap my athletes' hands hours before they fight and it won't come loose or move. Don't ever be afraid to ask your athlete for help to hold a piece of the gauze or hold tape or hold the scissors when you're wrapping their hands. I start on the wrist, picking up with the tape where the gauze finished. And again, appropriate tension is key here. You can definitely go too tight or too loose on your athlete's wrist. From here, I bring this up to an inch behind the pinky knuckle. I pinch in tightly to make sure that the wrap and the tape is thin going across the palm so that it doesn't bunch up. From here with a tight fist, I put a little bit of extra tension right here. This is very, very important to hold all these bones in nice alignment. I go across the palm again pinching in to make the tape half as thin. And from here, tight fist, and again, I put a little bit more tension in this part of the wrap. Now that there's a soft layer under it, I can put more tension in without cutting off circulation in the athlete's hands. And from here, I finish carefully down the wrist. This should be a legal wrap job in any LBC or organization that you're participating in, whether it's professional or amateur or just for training purposes. Another important part that was taught to me by Bob Miller is once you get that tape down, you really want it to all feel like one solid layer, not a bunch of separate pieces of tape. So using the back of my scissors here, I press that adhesive down and together, so that this all becomes one solid glove, one solid gauntlet. I always tell my athletes, can't play piano anymore, only violence. And there you have an easy, functional, beautiful competition wrap that Tyrell used to win 3 nice fights in a row, got 4 knockdowns in those 3 fights, and never hurt his hands the littlest bit. Hope you learned something so that you can use this skill for yourself or your fighters, and you can all have success when you fight.